Tom, we'll start by talking about last night's, I'm not sure what it was, game show, dating show, leadership debate, not really sure. But I did want to start by playing this clip, this whole idea of Pierre Poilievre wanting to fire the Bank of Canada, the head of the Bank of Canada. God. Take a listen to this.
There's no question that we have to hold those accountable who have caused it. You know, money printing, government deficits have caused more dollars chasing fewer goods, driving higher prices, and the Bank of Canada governor has allowed himself to become the ATM machine of this government. And so I would replace him with a new governor who would reinstate our low inflation mandate, protect the purchasing power of our dollar, and honor the working people who earn those dollars.
Yeah. To which people say, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? So, Tom, what's going on here?
Well, you know, there really is a fine line between having a bold new idea during a leadership campaign, and that's, you know, what you can do to attract attention to yourself, and coming up with something that's a really crackpot idea. I mean, people are looking at Pierre Poilievre last night because, unlike the first debate, which didn't make the national networks, it was something you had to find where it was playing. You remember I said, oh, you'll find it on CPAC and stuff like that. This one, millions of Canadians were watching this thing. And this was their first time they got to see Pierre Poilievre in action. And their reaction was, what did he just say? And so today the Poilievre camp is trying furiously to get people to understand that Jacques Chrétien back in the early 90s had done something similar, that he didn't like the policies, and he never had to fire the governor at the time because the governor quit the night that Chrétien won his election. But here it's something quite different. Using that as a stunt. You know, this is a G7 country. Our institutions are important. They're universally respected. You know, we cannot believe that a guy like Poilievre would ever become prime minister of our country. And that's where he really blew it yesterday. He had everything lined up to maybe pull off a first-round victory. He could still do it. But after last night, Patrick Brown did really well. Leslyn Lewis is going to keep attracting tons of money and lots of attention. And Charest did super well. He was a bit too hot, but his answers were great. And he got into the minds of a lot of conservative voters saying, are you serious? Like, just because you're angry that Andrew Scheer couldn't score into an empty net, and because you're disappointed with O'Toole over issues like the gun registry, you're going to elect this clown? He never had to say anything bad against Poilievre, but everything that he said proved that Poilievre was not a serious candidate to lead a G7 country.
I thought his anger, I mean, honestly, you know, of everybody on that stage, there's no question that Charest was the most articulate, and he commanded the most respect and attention. However, I found him to be disproportionately angry. Like, his level of anger and the way he was yelling didn't seem fitting to what he was discussing or the context.
It wasn't fitting to last night's debate, but it was fitting to the previous debate.
Yes.
There's an old expression that generals prepare to fight the last war. And Charest did that. He and his people said, well, we're going to just have to pump up the volume a little bit. We're going to scream a little bit more because otherwise we won't be heard above the people who are be voting. Tom Clark, even despite the fact that it was a little bit ludicrous to have that, sad trombone nonsense, but the whole thing was kept on a much tighter schedule, and it was a much tighter debate, and it was a chance to actually hear what some of these people had to say. So I think that the Conservative Party did a heck of a lot better job than that right-wing think tank did the last time around.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty low bar, though, with all due respect, Tom. You know, first of all,
I'll have to concede that.
Yeah, Pierre Poilievre standing at the end of the stage after he ran out of paddle challenges and couldn't say anything because his time was up. I mean, the format was pretty awful, I think.
And I want to know, like, with regards to the props and the sound effects, for us it came across as silly. The whole thing felt a little rinky-dink. How is that playing to conservatives? Did the conservative audience appreciate that?
I think the people who were with all of the other candidates appreciated it, because what happened last time was that Poilievre was able to suck all the air out of the room, allow his followers to cut off Charest, for example, by booing him. And this is the type of thing that Tom Clark said, this isn't going to happen this time. Not on my watch. Okay. And I think he was good about that.
So let me ask you this. So we talked about the Bank of Canada, the issue, wanting to fire the governor. And then there's the issue of abortion. Jean Charest made it a point. In fact, let's listen to this, talking about Poilievre's lack of an actual position on this.
Right.
I did see something tonight that I have never, ever seen in a debate in my lifetime. Never, ever have I seen someone flip-flop on stage on something like abortion. I mean, Mr. Poilievre to flip-flop in one answer to the other is unprecedented on an issue like that. I've never seen that happen before.
Okay, so
and
Tom,
then gaslit
he's
him,
right?
He gaslit him and said you didn't remember that.
Well, no, what he said, he didn't actually state his position. What did he say, Tom? That if he was prime minister, he'd let people vote their conscience. He didn't say his position.
No, and he never would. And even when he did finally come out with a position, he used his favorite word, the word from our drinking game, which was freedom. So I'm in favor of freedom of choice. It was a clever distinction because the terms that are usually used are pro-life or pro-choice. Are you pro-life or pro-choice? And what Poilievre is saying, he's not answering the question. He's saying, I'm in favor of freedom of choice. So I'm going to give people their freedom. That's his number one theme in his campaign. But he's not expressing his personal view on this. And he is leaving the door completely open to letting MPs come up with private members' bills to ban abortion, and he wouldn't do anything to stop it.
Can he keep getting away with that, Tom, or he's going to be called on the carpet for that ultimately?
Well, he's in a bit of a squeeze right now on that particular one because Leslie Lewis is not going to let him go because she wants his votes. She'd love to have his votes, but I still think that he's, since the beginning of this thing, I've perhaps thought maybe Charest had more of a chance than I've seen in the two debates. But I think that as things stand right now, the prohibitive front runner is Poilievre. But Patrick Brown and Jean Charest are selling memberships. Charest is starting to light up the room a bit. A lot of people were impressed by Patrick Brown yesterday. Now, there's going to be a real test of which one of these people is a real candidate for prime minister next week in Laval, because they're going to have a leadership debate in French. So just go down the line. Charest, obviously, for him, it's a home game, and Laval's a great place for Liberals. I can tell you about that because I was an M&A up there for years. The other thing is, too, Patrick Brown has not bad French, but it's certainly not fluent. And unless he's been super disciplined about preparing, it's going to come across as really broken. Even Poilievre, whose family was, they were out west, they were Franco-Saskatchewan family, and I have to tell you that his French is actually quite broken. His accent's not bad, but he doesn't know the word for anything, and he'll be substituting in what we call in translation false friends. He'll be sticking in words that are really close to the word that he knows in English, but he won't have the right French word. And Leslie Lewis, zero French. Aitchison, nicest guy on the stage again last night, but I believe that he doesn't speak a word of French. I don't know what he and Roman Bébert are going to be able to do during this debate whatsoever. So it's going to be a very uneven time with regard to the linguistic abilities next week.
I don't even understand how they participate if they don't speak French in a French debate.
Well, because I cover this, I can tell you about the last time they had a French debate and Leslie Lewis was there. It was so unbelievably painful. She had memorized maybe 20 or 30 words that she tried to, trying to get across a stream by jumping from rock to rock, and she would try to read stuff. You saw her last night. This is the disappointing part about her. She's very smart, but anytime she'd get a question on Ukraine, she would look at this big binder she had in front of her and flip the tab to Ukraine and start reading. And that's not a way to convince people you master your file.
Yeah, we were saying, both of us, we think that was probably the biggest disappointment last night was Leslie Lewis. Did not seem prepared.
I agree.
She seemed out of her league entirely. And yet, then let's talk about Scott Aitchison for a second. Okay, so no French, but incredibly likable, great kind of relaxed presence. He doesn't stand a hope.
Mr. Canada. He's just the small town mayor that you'd love to be able to know and have as your town. Or as I said to Andrew this morning, he's sort of like a really good, caring high school principal type, just a good person with strong personal values. Poilievre got beat up so badly towards the end last night. I just thought it was really interesting to see. He put his arm around Poilievre on the way out. I don't think that they're friends by any stretch of the imagination, but he just saw a guy who had obviously, gotten the stuffing beat out of him and was, limping off the stage, so to speak, and he just took care of him. I just thought it was classy.
Yeah, he'd be the big surprise in this if he kept moving up. I mean, I think that can only get you so far. I don't think the Conservatives want to buy into another Aaron O'Toole light. But he does seem like a really nice guy. And as I said when I posted, he has the best sense of humor. No question about that.
Oh, and he's just, anytime Poilievre would give a good answer, he says, I think I'll make you my finance minister.
Exactly.
He's like, I'm making my whole cabinet.
Going to be his environment.
No, he's great. He's a hard guy not to like. All right, Tom, real quick before we run out of time, Omar Al-Gabra, I'm like, what are you doing exactly? So Here we have a situation where airports in this country, understaffed, everyone's traveling again. Someone asked the minister, look, are you going to be able to fix this? And what does he do? He blames people for traveling.
Yes.
Who the hell has the right to go to an airport to expect to travel?
Yeah, we're all out of practice.
This guy should be fired on the spot, okay, for what he just said. This guy is, I mean, it's unbelievable how inexperienced and ill-prepared he was for this major, major role. Mr. Trudeau gave him a chance, gave him this big job. But every time, he's been stepping in it every step of the way since he got this job. He's absolutely unqualified for it. And, this goes back to something that we have to start talking about. I know that it's probably the worst campaign slogan, and you'll never hear it, but it would be nice to hear a political party one day say, vote for us, you'll get good, competent public administration. There is right now, in the last year, we've gone from 1.5 million immigration cases in the backlog to 2 million. That's not going to get fixed. But by the way, immigration is the worst department in the Canadian government, and it's run by somebody. Again, Fraser's got like zero experience, and so this thing is just being driven into the ground. And you watch the politics that we just described now. Last night, there's this, there's that. Oh, we're right wing, we're left wing. Can we have the competent wing? Can we have the group of people who say this is a complex G7 country, one of the richer countries in the world? We're allowed to have good people who actually know what they're doing run government departments, but that's not the case right now.
Yeah, and that was such a gimme, right? What's wrong? Well, we're going to look into it and get them more people if they need, not to just turn around and blame travelers for traveling. Tom, we're done here. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Take care, guys.